Hey,
Hey,
everybody. Welcome back to the Radical Workplace. I'm Shale Risman, your
episode 3.
host. This is Mel, as you well know, my beloved co host on this show. We have a great show that I'm so looking forward to today. There's a restaurant in our area named Butchies that we
Yes.
all the time. And Andrea Nicholson is the owner of this restaurant, and she is absolutely incredible in the way that she has marketed and presented this business to the public. Not only that, she is a media star in the new Fire Masters series on the Food
Yes.
Network, and she has been around the Food Network for over a decade.
Years.
Yeah,
Yes.
and looking at some new restaurants and initiatives as well, and sharing with us some of the insights and secrets of trying to start and run a successful
Yeah.
restaurant and really a successful business
Mhm.
in this day and age, and keep it successful. So I really
Mhm.
enjoyed this conversation with her. Mel, what about you?
It was such an amazing conversation. Again, we're seeing the same themes in all of these lovely people that we're talking to. They have a great team behind them. They have creativity behind them. They have innovation. They don't stick for shit. They're innovative people and they make their own path. And we're enjoying these convos. And that's exactly what you're going to see in today's episode.
Couldn't have said it better. Thanks a lot. So here we go. With no further ado, Chef Andrea Nicholson. Hello.
Hi, my friend.
How are you doing?
I
Hi.
love chat with you. I'm great. The
Yeah, it's
sun's up
awesome.
today. My mood's up. It's good.
This is great, and we got a nice day and everything like that. I mean, we can't really. It's been raining all during May, so it's kind of gross, but it's looking up for us now, at
Good.
least. It's great.
Finally.
This is Mel. Have you met Mel?
Hey,
Mary
Mel.
Ellen?
Nice.
How are
Well,
you?
this is Andrea.
I'm
All right,
amazing.
now we've made all our introductions. We can actually move forward with this. Hey, again, welcome everybody to the Radical Workplace, and my guest today is Andrea Nicholson, Chef Andrea Nicholson. For those of you who may not recognize her, which is probably very few of you, from Fire Masters on the Food Network, as well as for Durhamites like myself from Butchie's Restaurant, which is one of the go-to places, certainly in our area, to get excellent food. So this is something that's thrilling for me because Andrea and I go back, not decades, but we certainly go back to when she started the restaurant, because God knows that I am the first one in line for good restaurants in this area, and really has made a name for herself, not only in the area, but certainly in the greater community as far as food goes and entrepreneurship, because she really stands out. Now that I finished saying all the nice things about you, Andrea, let's just keep moving forward.
Do it.
We'd like to start with like a little bit of a, we're not going to dwell too much on where I was born and where I grew up, but certainly we want to touch base on all those things to kind of figure out and see any patterns about entrepreneurship and where it starts. So, give us a little background on where you came from.
Jane and Bloor, baby. Born and raised.
Nice.
A Torontonian, true and true. I'm very proud to live in Durham now, but I sometimes say that I live in East Toronto.
I think most of us, anyone who's actually lived in Toronto at some point, that's what we usually say. I think
Like
we've
the
said the same thing.
Torontonian snob can never
That's
go away
right.
from it.
You
Yeah.
can't ditch it. You can't ditch it.
I'll give you the Coles notes. So
Yeah.
product of immigrant parents. My mom's side is Ukrainian. So naturally, I was brought up at Jane and Bloor, where most Ukrainians landed in Toronto.
Mhm.
And I grew up in Toronto, and growing up in Toronto gave me a huge bug to get into the culinary scene, because Toronto is one of the best culinary scenes in Canada. And, as a young kid, my parents loved a good life. They were very similar to you and Sharon. Like, you guys entertain, you like to eat out, you like to enjoy the finer things in life. And my parents loved to go to restaurants. So I was brought up in restaurants, and my aunt actually was a bartender at a restaurant in Toronto more of a bar called The Precinct. And for those Torontonians watching, and if you were part of Toronto in the 80s and the 90s, The Precinct was the place to be. And I grew up at the bar. Like I would
Well,
literally
it actually explains a lot, but okay.
no, for real. I would literally sit at the end of the bar while my aunt did her thing, and my parents were huge partiers. And I would just hang out with my aunt, and I would watch my aunt serve customers and just give like the utmost customer service. She's still in her 70s and she's still working in hospitality. So, like, yeah, so she was a huge part of like, I think why I got into hospitality, because loud music, talking to people, late nights, like I was like, this is pretty cool. But anyway, so, when I was 13, my parents, it's actually a long story about a very rare parrot. And I don't know if you want to hear it.
Let's hear it.
I want to hear. Yeah.
So, in the 90s, we grew up at, Jane and Bloor, Royal York and Bloor area. And there was a story going on in the papers about this Amazon parrot that was flying around High Park. It was on the news. It was everywhere. And I remember my parents joking, like, wouldn't it be funny if the parrot flew in our backyard? So one day we're in the backyard and my brother comes running into the house. He's like, Dad, the parrot is in our backyard. So my dad puts on a pair of canvas gloves and he goes outside and he just like scoops his parrot out of the tree, brings it inside. It was a double yellow-headed Amazon parrot. So my mom was like, we got to give this thing back. My dad's like, we got to keep this thing. Like, this is cool. So I think he posted somewhere that we had found the bird, like in the Etobicoke Canadian or something, and nobody claimed it. So we kept this bird for the longest time. He was an awful bird. He clearly had like multiple personality disorder because he was nuts. He would scream at the top of his lungs. Sometimes you could tickle him, or sometimes he would just attack you. Like, I literally have his beak as a scar here on my knuckles, but he sounded just like my mom. Like my mom still does. She goes, hello. And he I think my mom was screaming, but it was actually Jojo. Anyways, the part where it ties me into culinary is there still is a restaurant in Etobicoke called Rocco's Plum Tomato. It's on the lakeshore, and veal sandwich pasta joint. And so we used to go for dinner there at least once a week. And my dad and Rocco got talking one day about, this bird. And he looked at me one day and he said, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I was 13. And I said, I want to be a chef. And he was like, let me see your hands. So I showed him my hands. He's like, those are chef hands. Come and work for me on the weekend. So I was like, okay. So I started working there on the weekends, banging veal sandwiches out and the hot counter. And it turned into this like full-time job. The reason why I got the job is because my dad traded Jojo for me having employment.
That is a fantastic story. How would you not tell that story?
I got this bird and I got a job. And Jojo lived there for quite some time. I'm sure Rocco probably killed him because he was kind of nuts. They were both kind of nuts, so they were meant for each other. But that's essentially how I started cooking, was a trade-off between a parrot and a bird.
So, obviously a hilarious and not surprising story, frankly, about your start in the culinary arts. But how did this? So the first place you really worked was this kind of Italian sandwich shop, and and you said it led to full-time work, not when you were 13, I hope.
Yeah. Pretty much the summer of grade 8, I was fully employed. I was working like crazy. I was making crazy money. I was making tips. I was making it all. My mom at the same time was the office manager of the Island Yacht Club. So she had also was in like the hospitality field, and I hated working at that Italian restaurant. The owner was nuts. He was like crazy, sure, as most restaurateurs are, but he was at the highest scale. And she had reached out to a restaurant where her general manager happened to be the chef's husband. And anyways, Via Allegro in Toronto, which is at the time was the best Italian restaurant in Toronto. And she got me a position as a hostess. And I never wanted to be a hostess. I wanted to be in the kitchen. But the kitchen at the time was led by a male chef who straight to my face said to me, there's no women in my kitchen. And so wow. I was a hostess for about 3 or 4 months. And then I went to the owner, who was also nuts, but taught me tons. And I said, I'm quitting because I want to work in the kitchen. This is where I want to be. And he was like, well, then work in the kitchen. I said, well, I'm not allowed to. I've been told that there's no women in the kitchen. And he lost his mind. He went into the kitchen and he said, she starts tomorrow. And I killed it in the kitchen. And I was the best cook out of all of them. And I was 15.
There you go.
And I swung it, and I stayed there for almost 3 years. I went into culinary school from it, went to George Brown from there. And then I got the bug because that owner of that restaurant, he always wanted the best. It wasn't even up for negotiation to be mediocre or to be, just okay. You had to be the best. Like I remember we would get reviews, and that was a time where like food reviewers would really come in and review, and it would be this like incognito thing. And I remember Joanne Cates, who is huge for Toronto in publication, she had come into the restaurant and she did a caricature in the Toronto Star, and it was of a kitchen door with chickens with their heads cut off. Wow. And we were looking out of the door because she had happened to be there for service one night and see Phil and his robust personality and the way he would talk to his employees. And so that led to the article, but it was pretty interesting. But he was the kind of guy who always, you have to strive for best. I remember one day he walked in, and he used to come in and you would hear him come in. He would come in and he would drop his keys, and you would hear the keys hit the stainless steel, and everyone would just automatically up. And he would walk in, he would walk right to you, and he would look at whatever you're making. And I remember I was making a creme brulee, and he looked at it and he said, "Do you like that?" Stone cold. Okay. So you're like looking at it and you're like second guessing it. And I looked at him and I said, "Yes, I like it. What do you like about it?" So I had explained what I liked about it. Paused, looked at it. He would do it all the time. Look at it, analyze it, turn it around. And then he looked at it, he goes, "I effing love it." He would do it all the time, just scare the crap out of you, but always keep you on your toes. So that's I think how I really like got the bug of the restaurant business, because he would also take us out for dinner. He would take us to Centro downtown. He would take us everywhere, and he would order everything. Literally go, bring me everything. And He would just, and he would eat it and he would analyze it and all this kind of stuff. He was a fun character, but he introduced me to the culinary scene in Toronto. So from that restaurant, I went to go work for the best. So it was like, I literally would open Toronto Life and I would go to the back where they would have the ratings. Yep. And I would look. And then I went to the Four Seasons with Lynn Crawford. I went to Mark Tuitt when he was with Centro and when he was with Rosewood, and I worked for Suser Lee. So I had kind of checked all the boxes for chefs and the coolness factor.
You sure did. You really hit the cool factor with Rosewood and Centro. I mean, anyone who's been to the Toronto International Film Festival will know any of those restaurants, because those are the places that you'll see all the stars coming in.
Really, I wanted to work for the best restaurants, and I had a very much of a pattern where I would stay for 6 months. I would learn as much as I could, and then I would quit and I would go somewhere else. And it's very consistent with chefs these days, or they're quick in and out because they want to learn as much as they can and move on. And I was kind of bored of Toronto, and I was bored of working for these guys, and I knew that there was more out there, and I had a crazy travel bug, and I was like, I got to travel. And I had connected with a girlfriend of mine who we were very much on the same path, and she was like, "Let's go work on cruise ships." And I just went to like Mickey Mouse Carnival, and I was like, "Hell no." And she was like, "No, like, there are cruise lines out there that are really high end." So we did some research, and I literally, like, the first place I looked was it was then called Radisson Seven Seas, now called Regent Seven Seas. They're a 6-star cruise line, if you can imagine. There's an extra star. But I applied, and being a North American chef, you're considered higher up and more prestigious. And I got a job like right away. And I took my stuff. They flew me to New York. I got on a boat in New York, and I went. And we went from New York all the way down to the Caribbean and circled the Caribbean a bunch. I did an 8-month contract, and then I hated it. The only thing I liked about it was the travel, but I was the only female in a 159 crew of all men. And it was not pleasant. Talk about Me Too. The Me Too stories I have
I bet.
I think I've told them.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's it, I'm done. And my husband now was my boyfriend, and I missed him, and time to go home. And so I wasn't going to go back. And then I got a call saying, we know you didn't like it. We want to give you a better position. We want to give you a better suite on a bigger boat. We want to fly you to Dubai, and we want you to do the world cruise. And I was like, oh God, how can I not
do it? Yeah.
World cruise. And I was aboard for 12 months and everywhere. We literally went everywhere, and it was amazing. It was still hard as anything, but completely great. anyways, then came home, and then I just started running restaurants in Toronto, and some pretty cool spots in Yorkville and in Toronto, and catering companies, and then a show called Top Chef Canada came to Canada, and I had always said to David, my husband, like, if Top Chef ever comes to Canada, I'm going to do it. And it was more so of me showcasing my talent, because when I think I came to kind of my peak in being an executive chef in the early 2000s, I was like such a small handful of females. There was like 5 of us, and we never got any press. It was always the guys. We never got any.
This is a theme, obviously, that's come up a couple of times in the first 10, 15 minutes of our conversation here. And I think it's worth kind of going back on, because it's obviously such a huge part of not just the food industry, but any industry. You have obviously bashed your head up against a very male-oriented industry for essentially as long as you've been doing
the entire time.
Yeah. Have you been feeling that it's been getting better? Have you felt that you had to take steps backwards and make accommodations before changes were going to be made? Like how would you, as a young person, and then moving forward as you were able to make your own decisions and make your own rules?
Definitely now, looking in retrospect, I never put up with shit. And I've had myself fired from a couple of places because I just wouldn't tolerate it, and I just wouldn't deal with it. Like, the title female chef really bugs me.
Yep.
I'm just a chef. I'm not a female chef. I'm just a chef. There's no category here. Why are we put in a category? Like when I see like top 10 female like it bugs the hell out of me.
It's ridiculous. I feel the same way about the industry that we're in. There's an award out there for women in the channel in IT. And I'm like, I don't understand why they have to. I mean, I understand why women think they need to have that kind of, because they're not getting recognized everywhere else.
Exactly.
Anyway, that I just was off the top of my head there. I saw it yesterday, and
I see it. I face it every day. Like I literally had a conversation with somebody in media yesterday who said to me, "Oh, you're gonna love this. We're doing a show on female butchers." It's just like,
hey,
why would I love that?
Why?
I find it really annoying, actually, that you have to categorize us into a female butcher. Like, I think it's kind of stupid. To which I said, "Oh, I've been teaching butchery at George Brown and Hunter College for the last 10 years. Like, it's a normal thing. And women do too. I'm sure your mom and grandma do it."
Well, listen, would it be was it more about the attitude, or was there actual physical issues that you had to deal with? Like you've already said that you had to walk away from several things that people forced themselves on you. And I mean, this is something that's come up in the past when you talk to female chefs, unfortunately, that it has been not only a male dominated industry, but a very physical male dominated industry.
All of the above.
Right.
I mean, anything from dealing with a supplier to dealing with, a customer who walks in. Like there's just a preconceived notion about a female running a business, that we're very emotional. We're too heavy on the emotions, and it's interesting. Like I can talk to a supplier about a mechanics of a machine, for example, and they'll talk to me like I'm an absolute idiot and be like, "Buddy, I know more about this machine than you probably do." Research about it as well, but I get it. I've gotten it from every single channel possible. Right. Physical, mental, emotional. Like just a quick story, but when I was working on the cruise ship, this was when I was on my second contract, and I was an executive sous. So I was pretty much the third in command on the boat. So I had 68 gents under me. And one day they decided that it would be really funny to do a draw and see a bet and see what color bra I was wearing. So they drenched me with. No, I'm dead serious. And when it was revealed, it was like this team won and that team didn't win. And I was like, "Is this for real? Like this is what?"
Oh my God, that's horrifying.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, like I don't let it affect me anymore. I think it's made me even more determined to prove them wrong and to be like, yeah, okay, watch. I oftentimes don't get a lot of pleasantries. Like people find me very brash because I just won't put up with it. Like,
well, you've put up with it for a long time, and eventually that's what happens. We're seeing that with a lot of people that we interview. is that you put up, certainly when you're coming up and you're learning and you're in school and you're doing your first jobs, you put up with everything because you don't have the experience, or you don't feel you have the right to push back. But
Yeah.
now, I mean, seeing you, just looking at the environment in the restaurant that you've created, it's very, very balanced as far as females and males. It's very balanced as far as diversity, and everybody gets yelled at. So it's it actually works out great for everybody, right? It's why the restaurant runs so well. Listen, let's go to one of the things we talk about here is obviously about entrepreneurship as well. And I know everyone's always going to be interested in the into the culinary part of this, but they can watch you doing other interviews and YouTube stuff and tune into Fire Masters to get that. Let's talk about when you first thought that you could use your culinary expertise to turn into a business, because it's not an easy business. It's not something I have to tell you. That's pretty much a universal truth.
Oh God, I literally, after this call, I'm driving up to Collingwood because I have a new consulting client, and I often the first question I say is why do you want to own a restaurant?
Right.
And oftentimes the ones that say to me it's for money, I will say let's go back to the drawing board on that one, because that's probably the best channel to go down. I knew I had, like, if you go back and watch episodes of Top Chef like 10, 12 years ago, I had a goal that when I was 30, I was going to own my own restaurant with no partnership, nobody else except for me. That was a goal that I had. I didn't achieve that until 31, but I got it. And my goal was to have nobody else with me along the ride. Obviously my husband and my son and things
Right.
like that. I didn't want any kind of partnerships because I joke that I'm completely unemployable.
You joke about it. These guys, Mary Ellen, who's our our marketing coordinator, hears me say it weekly. I'm completely unemployable. I can't do anything.
Yeah. Like, I quickly learned that, and this could be also the Leo in me, but I've quickly learned, and the stubbornness in me, but I guess from experience, because I did for at least the first 10, 15 years of my career, I just put my head down and I did the work. I didn't say a word. I was quiet. I just looked and listened and made sure that I knew what was going on behind the scenes, and I was taking notes the whole time. Why this place is failing, why this place is doing good, and so on and so forth. So I think when I finally got to the place where I wanted to own my own place, I knew pretty clear I wanted to do it by myself, because I didn't want a partner telling me you have to have this on the menu, or why don't you consider doing this? No, I had an idea and I wanted to do it. So and it's a lot of me wanting to prove my family wrong, not my family wrong, but I wanted to prove for myself that I could do it and achieve a goal.
Right.
And so yeah, I make myself goals. I don't give myself I gave myself a 30-year-old goal to open a restaurant, and I achieved it, which is great. But
right. But you said that the motivating factor, and we talked about a little bit about this in the pre-interview as well, the motivating factor was, and you said it again, is that you were trying to prove something to your family. You were trying to prove it, that it was something that you could accomplish. Is that because they told you couldn't accomplish it? Is that because they pointed you in a different direction? Like, what was the reason?
Yeah, I think we're a very family that sets education at a high bar. And so some parts of my family
I think that's an immigrant thing too, right? Like that's
yeah,
absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so, watching older relatives who were a little bit farther along than me go to university and achieve these great things and get them, I could sense sort of like a tension within the family that we had to achieve, for them to be proud of us, we had to achieve, a certain mark. And my brother and I didn't go to university. We're both super accomplished in our own ways. And so, yeah, I think that there's like an underlining, like, yeah, we can do it. We can do it the other way. We don't need to do it the straight way. We'll go the other way.
So no matter what you accomplished, there's still a thing there in the family that's like, well, you could basically have gone to school and then ended up, not doing anything, and that would still be better than being a renowned chef in Canada. Like, I don't understand.
Not anymore. Like, my family is the biggest cheerleader. Like, talk about fan club. Like, my family, like they're the greatest. I think also it really comes down to me. And in full transparency, I see a therapist. It's an amazing relationship. We talk a lot, and it's just something to get off my chest. And we constantly have these conversations. And she's always like, it's you, right? Like, you're never happy. And I know that. Like, I'm never content. It's never enough. Maybe we could have done it better this way.
Yeah.
But that's a common trait, Andrea, we're finding, certainly as we're going through this with entrepreneurs, that one of the main aspects, main elements of entrepreneurship, certainly for successful ones, is that they're never happy, whether that's good or bad. And when you bring up therapy, I mean, listen, I'm exactly the same way. Go to a therapist, have gone to therapist for years. I think everybody needs to go to a therapist because it just keeps your head on straight. But I think that, and I know for myself as an entrepreneur, it's the same thing. It's that you're never happy. No matter how good it gets, you're never ready to ride a wave. And certainly your career has shown that, because every single time that you've accomplished something, you've essentially said, I got it. I'm moving on to another restaurant. Okay, I got it. I'm moving on to another TV show. Okay, I'm opening up my own restaurant, and I'm moving on to the next. And now I'm opening up another, facility. So like there is a lot of that in you. Do you think that sorry, go ahead.
Well, I know why that's in me, is because I have ADD, and I'm bored. Like, I get to a point, like Butchies, I adore it. It's like a second child. I'm way too emotional. I'm also way too, and I don't know if you're the same, but I'm way too emotionally connected to my businesses.
Oh yeah.
To a fault where it's
100%.
It's not a healthy relationship to have at times either. Like, it's that connection that I'm trying to break as well. Just to step away a bit and know that it's okay and know that it's running. But I think naming it also after my dad. So name my restaurant Butchie. My dad's no longer with us. My dad's a huge player in my life. So, that emotional connection for me is really hard to break. It's an interesting dynamic.
You've got great people at that restaurant, and I feel the same way. It was a long, just on my aspect of it, when we got to a certain size, and I couldn't have my hands on everything anymore. That was a huge therapy breakthrough as well, because it was like, Shale, you have to kind of, if you want to grow, if you're not happy, if you're bored, if whatever it is, somebody has to take care of this for you while you go on to your other stuff. And I think that, well, like I said, you got a great staff at the restaurant, but that's got to be incredibly hard, because those recipes are yours. No one is going to be able to make those preparations or cook the way that you do.
I'm Michael Shagru, president of Pace Technical. For over 20 years, we've been the leader in managed and co-managed IT for businesses in the GTA. If you want a proactive, process-driven approach to IT, we can help. Our complete care service eliminates issues and gets businesses the most out of their IT investments. We provide help desk support for quick response when you have issues, proactive maintenance to keep systems running, enterprise-grade security to keep you safe, and IT strategy for better business decisions. Book a free 20-minute IT gauge at pacetechnical.com today.
So, that's got to be difficult.
I think the biggest lesson for me in entrepreneurship has been trusting people and relinquishing power. That one's been super hard because, as long as my entire life, I've been in charge of my own life. Like, I've called the shots. I make all the calls. So delegating those tasks to other people have been very difficult, and finding those right people. And I've really learned to trust my gut. And listen to it, because when my gut is like, yeah, I'm not quite sure, it always plays its part out, and it's always like, trust my gut. So now I've so much realized that I need people around me who are extremely creative, extremely accountable. Oh my God, that word accountable for me is so important. When I give you a task, and my therapist also says, like, not everyone's like you, Andrea, but I try to kind of surround myself who are people of like-mindedness, where it's like, I give you a task, I've put you in this place for a reason, because you're creative, because you're thinking, because you're accountable, blah, blah, just go. Just go. I don't want to micromanage you. I just take it and run with it. So I've figured out now, and I have an amazing team of people right now. Like, thank God. And I say it all the time that, like, in 26 years of my career in this business, I've never had a group of people like this before.
It's a great group in there. And I think that this is the same kind of, you've obviously got, again, accountability is one of the major things when we talk about entrepreneurship and trying to be able to let that stuff go. Certainly it's something that I preach. The only thing I probably push to my kids and to my team, right, is that I'm not micromanaging you. This is your gig. You can make of it what you want or don't make of it what you want, but I have expectations and I know you can do it, or else I wouldn't have put you in charge of my livelihood, which is what this is, right?
And
so
that's the piece.
Yeah.
That's the piece that's that emotional piece that it's really hard to detach from, where when an employee fails or an employee doesn't achieve that mark, I take it too personally. And I've really had to teach myself, like, how to kind of disengage in that and say, like, okay, they're not personally attacking you, or it's not a personal attack. They're not even thinking about you. And so, you know, my therapist says to me often, it's none of your business what other people think about you. And most of the times they're actually not thinking what you're thinking. So get it out of your head.
Well, that's a whole anxiety piece though, too, right? Is that you're always thinking, you're always kind of forecasting what people are thinking or thinking about you. And most of the time they're not thinking about you at all. It never even occurred to them, right? So it's kind of, for me, with you though, again, we're going back to the entrepreneurship thing. Something must have clicked at some point where someone has, you know, with the amount of experience you have in the culinary, in being a chef and having the culinary talent that you have, something had to shift somewhere that said, I am not going to work for other people. I'm going to work for myself. When did that happen, and why do you think it happened?
I took a job with Maple Leaf Foods as the corporate chef. And this was 6 years ago. And it was presented to me by a recruiter. And, you know, in our trade, the corporate field, probably about 5 years ago, the corporate field was like a no-no. Like, you've totally sold yourself out. You know, you're this creative dynamo, and now you're going to go trade yourself into some corporate, you know, hot dog company. So it was very like, oh my God, I'm going to work for corporate. So, you know, I went in and they met me and they wanted me right away. And I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like, I've never been, you know, headhunted like this before, and found out about the salary and the expectations. And I was like, yeah. And I get like dental and medical and all of these things and a pension plan. Like, what? Like, we don't have this in my industry. That's unless you work in hotel, unless you work for big money in hotel. So I was like, and I had a small child at the time, and I wasn't ready to go back into restaurants. And I knew that I didn't want to work for a restaurateur and be their executive chef. So I was trying to find other ways. I had just finished TV. I was doing a lot of interesting thing. I was working at Humber College and George Brown teaching, but I wasn't ready yet to fully dive into teaching. I felt like I was too young. I just wasn't ready for it yet. It wasn't exciting me as much as I wanted it to. And then was doing some TV gigs and media stuff and food styling things here and there, which I was making money, but it was great. So when this Maple Leaf job came around and the salary was great, however, it was in Mississauga. And so living from Ajax, traveling to Mississauga sucked. But talk about taking my soul and stepping on it and crushing it every single day. I hated that job. I did.
So it was exactly what you thought it was going to be. It was actually selling your soul, no matter what everything else you said.
Yeah, you know, and the promise was that I was going to have a pretty substantial voice there, and that, you know, I was taking over the media, which is what I wanted to do, and I was going to be a spokesperson for them. So I gave away a little bit of my integrity and my philosophies when it came to food for this position. And so that kind of made me go like this a bit, and feel like I was sort of letting my trade and my industry down. But then we got into it and we started creating recipes, and then that kind of like that corporate beast of like, no, it was my idea. No, it was my idea. And these meetings and these useless emails and, you know, all these memes that go on in the internet. Well, not being a part of the corporate world, I didn't, you know, you watch it and you're like, haha, but like, no, it's real.
No, it's real. It's real. You realize that Dilbert is actually a thing.
Yeah.
And I sit in these meetings, I would sit in these board meetings and think to myself, I'm so out of the norm here. Like, I don't fit in. I am the puzzle piece that does not fit in. And I would bring to the table amazing ideas and creative ideas, and they would just get shot down. We shot over like 1,000 recipes. They're nowhere to be seen. Content that just died, like days and hours of me being in the kitchen with my culinary team would be nowhere. And it just wasn't fulfilling. And I realized that
Well, why do you think that is, first of all? Why do you think that they didn't use it? Is there a reason for it?
Well, yeah, I mean, there was some, so the social media marketing person who was in place really didn't like me, thought I was going to take the job. So there was a bunch of bullshit behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And, just a lot of BS and, doing work for nothing, just to say you're doing work,
Hey, you go into corporate, in the corporate world, no matter what industry you're in, politics is king, and there is no getting around it. So you got to be ready for that. And a creative person like you and me, because I've done it too, and I left, is because it, in my opinion, and maybe it's not that way in a lot of places, but corporate attitude kills creativity. And if you're a creative person, it's never going to work.
Yeah, and
fit you into a box, and you're not meant to be boxed in as a creative.
That's right.
Yeah, for sure. There'd be moments where, the culinary team would go back and say, like, this doesn't taste right. This isn't right. Here's the reasons why. And it would just, go over. And I used to have meetings with my boss, who was a very high up VP. And I would say to him, like, help me explain this, because I really don't understand. And I had no filter with him at all. Like, I'm coming to you with amazing ideas, things that can be executed, like, no problem. Like, where's the barrier? Oh, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to work with you. And it was just, lip service. And it didn't work. Luckily, though, during that time, Top Chef All Stars came around and was like, we want you to come and do All Stars. And it was like, yes, it was my they paid me, Maple Leaf paid me to stay and keep working, because it was great exposure for them. But it was interesting, because when the show finally went to air, they didn't even promote me being on it. And I was like, this is crazy. You gave me a month off, you paid me. You don't see the value in marketing your corporate chef being on a huge platform. And so I pretty much built the business plan for my restaurant. I didn't know where the restaurant was going to be. And it's funny, because Butchies, which is in Whitby, we used to go there constantly for ice cream. I used to say to my husband all the time, like, this place has so much potential. It's on a busy road, big property. Like, we should maybe consider this place. And whatever, I took the corporate job, and then I did Top Chef. So I knew right away while I was doing Top Chef, like, I'm not going back to Maple Leaf. Like, this boat has sailed. So the day I got kicked off Top Chef All Stars, I called my agent at like 6 o'clock in the morning, because I couldn't sleep. And I said, you need to find me a restaurant. And she said, you'll never believe what's for sale. She said, Shake, Rabble, and Roll, which is now Butchie.
Well, let me go into that for a second, because we've lived in Whitby for 20 years. And so Shake, Rabble, and Roll is literally down the street from us, or was. And so we had been in any number of iterations of that restaurant. Nobody ever got it right. It was always gross on the inside, which I'm sure that because you had to go in there and pick up the pieces. It was... I'll never forget going in and ordering, like, going with the kids. The kids were small, and ordering like just burgers and fries, and then my son asking for extra pickles, and them charging me 25 cents for the extra pickles. And as soon as that happened, just my entrepreneurship was like, wow, this place is not going to last, man. The second that you start nickel and diming people, it's over. So it was over and over. It was bad. And then, and I'm only saying this now because I'm setting it up for now you talking about how Butchies came around, because Sharon and I went to Nashville and on a trip. And we went to, oh my God, it's this really famous hot chicken.
Oh, Hattie B's.
That's it. That's the one. And we were like, this is the best food ever. How do we you can't get this in the Toronto area. You can't do it, and it's this whole meat and 1, meat and 2, meat and 3 thing that we were like, this is amazing. And then we went to another one in Nashville, which was pulled pork and brisket, and it was like all the same. Like, how is this not happening in the Toronto area? Because Torontonians are foodies. This is what we want to do. So literally, we came back in February of 2017. And I want to say a month after that, your sign went up saying meeting 1, meeting 2, meeting 3. I'm like, who the hell is in our heads at this point? And that's, anyways, you can continue now because that's how it started. That's how we found out about you anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I
Where
love
did the idea come from? Where did the idea come from?
a trip. Like I love, we travel to eat. we
Hello.
pick up, we totally so, you know, I've traveled down the south a whole bunch and I love options on my plate. Like don't tell me what I'm going to eat. Let me choose. I want a whole pick and choose idea. And just a trip to Nashville and eating at these meet and threes. And I'm like, we don't have this in Canada. And I knew that's the concept we wanted to do. Plus we did the due diligence of the neighborhood as well to see what the demographic was. Okay, we're young families, we're young professionals, there's money, you know, let's see what we can make approachable. And that property also fit for the brand, which was barbecue, kind of fried chicken, fried meat kind of idea. So everything sort of just made sense. And the name Butchies kind of made sense for it too. And
the name Butchies, well, we're going to get back to that because I do want to talk about your dad and his effect on this. But why would you, who's been trained, I mean, you are a Red Seal chef, you are well trained in Italy and with certifications in pizzas and all these amazing high-end certifications. Why meet and three? Why was that the approach? Because you could have done anything, Andrea.
Yeah, I totally could. And there's still more coming. Right. But for this restaurant, for that location, it did not make sense to make it a fine dining restaurant. It's too small. You know, the problem with a lot of restaurateurs is that they don't understand the volume that they can do within the space when it comes to the rent that they're paying, the staff that they need to have in-house, and kind of what that business needs to generate. It made no sense for a fine dining restaurant. It does not even have the feel for it. No. It was way too small. It's 1,500 square feet. We have so outgrown that place. Like we're considering taking the dining room out completely and just expanding the kitchen because we were to the limit. So I still very much want to do a fine dining restaurant. We've been looking for properties for a while. I think like with COVID in a couple of months, our industry is going to surge like crazy because people want to go out and dine out. So but you know, I'm not naive that also fine dining restaurants, there's calculations that have to take place. It's turnover. It's how many customers you can do in one turn. How much is your food cost? How much is your labor cost? So it just made sense that this spot would be a QSR, quick serve restaurant, in and out. Just keep turning tables. You know, that's where the money lies. Yes, I'm 100% in it for the love and the trade and you know what it does to me emotionally and physically. But it's also, you know, at the end of the day to make money and you know, I don't want to do it just for the love of it because then I'd just be nuts, but we need to make money at the same time.
Well, you have to. You've got a family to take care of, and certainly it must have come with its challenges taking over a restaurant that was I remember you when we first came in, and I think we were one of the first I definitely think we were one of the first customers in there, but we had a long chat that first time we were in there, but you were telling me a story about people coming in looking for like gravy and fries and hamburger with fries and gravy, and you were like, well, this is, you know, whatever, the burger, which is an incredible burger at Butchie's +1 or +2 is like $15, which is exactly what it should be at the level of frankly deliciousness that you get in that place. But of course people are used to coming in and paying $9 for a combo.
Well, and I think, you know, this is fundamentally the issue that's wrong with our industry overall. And if you talk to anybody in our trade who actually knows what's going on, this is the issue, is that consumers don't pay enough for food. Restaurants are too timid and too scared of losing their customer base to actually charge what they need to be charging. Like when I drive past these restaurants that have like a $3.99 breakfast special, like why? You are literally giving away your food for what? For what?
Yeah.
Like it makes no sense. So I mean, Durham was a very hard beast to crack, because I've left out chunks of my years of this industry that I've been in. But I had a cooking school and a restaurant where I was partner in Toronto, and we could easily sell a piece of sable fish with a side for $36, because that's actually what it costs
That's
to
right.
have an employee make it and serve it on fine china and blah, 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 blah. But coming to Durham, it was a totally different mindset, because here we have, frozen places, mom and pop places that are, lovely people, but they're serving frozen processed food from, buying it from the wholesale club. And we see it every day. They're buying the boxes of onion rings and then putting them in the deep fryer. Well, there's no labor involved in that. Yeah, you might think it's good, but like there's nothing involved in that. Versus if we were to make homemade onion rings ourselves, well, you're looking at probably a 55% margin increase from that, right?
Right.
It's we have
But
to
there's
charge.
but what you did do is there is a difference, and again, with the entrepreneurship and the kind of vision that you had with your restaurant, and me as someone who was a regular patron and still is a regular patron of that restaurant, and watching from a business perspective, what happened when people would walk in, and this happened several times when I was in there, where someone would come in and they just weren't used to in Whitby, they just were not used to dealing at this level of food.
Yeah.
They were used to, if you're going, like you said, a quick serve restaurant, you're used to going in, you're in and out in 10 minutes and you're done. That does not happen at Butchies, because there is work that goes into preparing these meals, and you can see it and you can taste it. But these people were not ready for it. Now, all that being said, I watched that happen. As the years go on, as the past 3 or 4 years went on, those people disappeared, and the right people came in, because you are constantly crowded. There is constantly a in and out stream. People get it now, and that is all because you maintained your vision of your restaurant and didn't compromise. And you said the word integrity before, which is a clicks a switch with me, because when we've done these interviews, that's come up every time with entrepreneurs, is that the second, look, when you went to Maple Leaf, and the second that your integrity was compromised, you wanted to get out. Same thing here. You kept your integrity dealing with these people. Anybody else would have gone, fuck it, I'm gonna do I'm putting together the $4.99 eggs and hash brown special. Yeah.
I mean, we've definitely found ways to target some of those consumers, because yes, we definitely lost a lot at the beginning. I remember sitting in my car just bawling my eyes out and being like, what the hell am I doing wrong? Like, I don't even understand. Like, I've been at the top of my game in Toronto for the longest time, and then I've come here and these people are slagging me like crazy. Like, the reviews in the first couple of months were just insane. And I'm I don't get it. We're grinding our own meat. We're making patties from scratch. We didn't even have a freezer. Like, I don't get it. The buns are coming in fresh every single day. Like, what am I missing? And, it was days where I was just like, no, it's just the clientele. Like, just let it go, let it pass. It'll pass. And then slowly they started coming in. And then slowly, now we have an amazing client base who are so bloody supportive
and loyal.
Oh, my God, they're loyal.
We see the same people in the parking lot all the time when we go in, right?
Great.
So
and I had that in Toronto. I had my loyal clientele, but nothing like this. Like, we joke that we have Butchie babies, because we've seen, clients who've gotten pregnant during our tenure there. It's lovely, but it's never, I don't compromise on my stuff. Like, I don't even compromise with my staff. Like, I'd hate to say this on a podcast, but there's often times where I will kick cooks off the line if they're continuously putting out crap. And it's, get off my line and I will go in and cook.
So what have you learned about that as you've gone forward? What kind of person are you looking for the line? Like,
accountability.
You must have learned that.
Every single ad that I always post says that you have to have passion, you have to have accountability. You have to be accountable for that food. If you pass the buck on to somebody else, you're not the right fit for me. And I've learned that really quickly. My accountant hates me, because we are constantly like, hi, Jim doesn't work here. Bob doesn't work here. Jenny doesn't work here. But it's that right fit. It's that person who gets it, who understands it. It's hard for someone, and, we have often conversations like this all the time, but like, employees, unless they have a stake in the game, are just employees, and they're not there to stay. So we really try to find people who want to be part of the family and who see the growth in it as well, and who know that, you know, if you stick around me long enough, we're growing together. You know, I want to see you in a brand new car. I want to, you know, I want you to get a house. I want you to go on these amazing vacations. I want you to live that great life. But I need to see that, you know, commitment to me and the business as well. And we give it back to our employees as well.
Yeah, without question. And you give it back to the people who come into the restaurant. I mean, that's, you know, we're talking about this whole, you know, weeding out the people who didn't get it and bringing in the people who did get it. And I think that the big, and this is something that also comes up in everything else that we've talked about, and it's great that Mary Ellen is here because this is what she does for Pace. But your mastery of social media, I think, is probably the main key to getting your message and your integrity out to the public in Whitby and Durham region, and bringing in the right people, because the people who didn't get it don't care. The people who watch your social media do care and come in.
I think that definitely goes hand in hand with branding and how you position your business. And, you know, I often do consulting projects with restaurateurs, and I'm like, where's your landing page? Where's your engagement with your customers? Like I hate it at the same time. Like, you know, my agent constantly is saying, you don't post enough on your personal social media. And I just think it's just this weird
You have to.
But for the
Andrea,
restaurant,
you know what you do? You hire someone to do it for you.
we did. No, we did, which is amazing. That was something that I quickly learned. Okay, we need somebody here monitoring our social media, monitoring platforms, engaging with customers. I can't do it. I'm too busy.
Right.
So yeah, we have somebody, Christina. She's amazing, and she's on it, and she's super creative. The other day, she was out in the field, rolling around on the dandelions, taking shots, and I was like, "Yes, this is what we need."
Yes. This is great, but that's it. The social media has made that change. It certainly made changes for us. We've seen a huge response from people now that Mary Ellen is, and she is 100%. And certainly Mel can speak to it as well, but that's what she does all day, every day, before hours and after hours, right? Is sitting on social media.
And you can't really take like time off of doing it because there's so much that changes, and like you have to constantly keep people engaged and involved in your brand. Else they know.
It's had such a financial impact on my business as well. I mean, you know, to think that we wouldn't have Instagram or Facebook, I couldn't even imagine sort of to be now, because we post our specials daily. We engage. You know, we have sangria. Hey guys, and we see, you know, okay, we're at 5,000 impressions today just from a single hamburger poster. So getting that messaging out through those social channels has been huge.
Well, like I said, I'm a consumer of your product, so it's one of those things where I'm watching your page. I see it. You know, the recent Mother's Day one that you did, by the way, my mom was ecstatic with that.
Cool.
She loved it, and she's like, and it was only her and her husband, so she's like got a week's worth of food in that package, and she's like, I think the best thing, the taste was amazing. The best thing about it is I don't have to cook for a week. Literally eating salmon for a week. It's awesome. But anyway, I would not have known that unless I saw it on your page. And I bought one for our house, and I bought one for my mom. And I can't have been the only one, because I was in the parking lot that day, and there was a shit ton of people in there taking out the Mother's Day special.
And partnered, and you know, and we partnered with 2 other local businesses. We partnered with Baking at Its Best to give us some beautiful cakes, and a lakeside, you know, floral company to do our florals. And you know, it for us, it's like, let's make this a one-stop shop. I mean, why not? It just makes total business sense. And teaming up and right now supporting local is like the best thing we can do.
You have to.
You know, it only made sense, and we have an amazing platform to do it, and our consumers want it anyway. So it was kind of a no-brainer.
So I got a couple more things before. I know we're kind of running short on time, and I don't want to take up your time because you're very busy, but we are. We didn't really get a chance to talk too much about Fire Masters, which is the new thing that you're doing now. So tell us about that.
Fire Masters, it's an amazing show. I love TV because TV is so much like the restaurant business. TV crews and kitchen crews are very similar. Long days together, 12 hours. We're like a family. It's a hurry up and wait scenario, and we get it done. And there's always some BS that's going to, you know, play its course. So I joke also that I'm like a Food Network bench warmer because I've been a Food Network personality for 12 years now. So they called. One of my really good girlfriends is executive producer, and she was like, "We want you as a judge." And I was like, yeah. And we film in Hamilton, and it's really talented chefs. Like, it's not a BS show. It is proper chefs, barbecue pit masters, coming in and cooking, 3 rounds of cooking, and then the last round they compete against one of the judges. So there's 3 of us, and we don't know who's going to cook, which is super fun. And then we back into that competing mode. And Thursdays at 11 on the Food Network. So it's good. And in the States, it's on the Cooking Channel, and in Europe, it's on Blaze.
Nice.
So,
it's in Europe too. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's actually one of the best cooking shows right now for ratings, which is super rad. Not so much in Canada, but overseas, it's really big. So we're hoping that in September it gets greenlit again, and then I'm back filming for season 4.
So far, so good. I did watch 1 episode, and I loved it. So, and I don't get to watch network television all that much anymore for obvious reasons, but I always like watching you on that stuff. So let's close off with this. Because, you know, this is one of the great stories that and we've talked about entrepreneurship, and we've talked about, you know, your culinary talents and all of those things, but Butchies is an extraordinarily personal venture for you, and it always has been right from the beginning. And you have been very, very effusive about the fact that your father is the one that inspired this restaurant. Maybe not the actual food in the restaurant, but certainly inspired you to create the restaurant and name it after him. And his name doesn't sound anything like Butchies, which I think is hysterical. But, you know, and this is something that people had asked me to ask you, like people who may not have been in the restaurant, but know, because you've been, like I said, effusive about this, you know, that he influenced, and his name is on the restaurant. So tell me how that happened, and why you ended up doing that.
So my grandmother and my father, huge, massive influences. I would have called the restaurant Paraska, but I fear that a lot of people wouldn't have been able to say the name.
Too ethnic,
There is a restaurant coming that's going to be called Baba's, and it's actually that I'm actually holding my grandmother's mug. But so my grandmother and my dad, very influential. My dad specifically, I mean, talk about being a daddy's girl. He was just he's passed away. He's been gone for 11 years, passed away of cancer. My dad, talk about a fighter. My entire childhood was, you know, faced with some kind of health issue that he might have had. He had like a triple bypass in the early 80s, a heart attack, like probably every 6 months or something. At one point he had like an aneurysm on his aorta that it should have exploded, and it never did. But he always was in the hospital with like such grace, and he just, you know, would be like, okay, well, we'll get it done, and we'll be on with it. My dad was the ever dreamer as well. And I have dream big on our windows because he always had a dream. He always wanted to do something. There was always something on the docket. You know, like he wanted to put a pool in our backyard, so he built it and he put it in. He always had doodles of like landscaping projects that he wanted to do. At one point, he wanted to sell boats. So he bought boats and he would bring them home. He wanted to he bought an ambulance once, and he brought this ambulance home and he retrofitted it to be like a camper.
Oh my God, that's hysterical. I had
My dad, though, is that in the early 90s, he decided he wanted to own a limo business, and he bought a limousine, a stretched Lincoln limo, and they had just come out with a stretch version. So, and we by no means were wealthy or affluent. We were like a completely blue collar fam. My mom, 100% the breadwinner, because my dad just always dealt with health issues. That my dad would work when he could, and he would work hard when he could, but most of the time he was off because of heart issues. So he would do these side projects because they always knew that he had to find hustle somewhere. So he bought a limo. He brought it home one day. He pulled it into the driveway. My mom came out, freaked out. What the hell is it gray? Why is it gray? And she's freaking out. Gray. And he was like, well, black's funeral, white's wedding, gray's in the middle. We get, you know, balance both ways. So like, I used to be driven to school in a stretch limo. So, you know, his coup d'etat was that he drove Katie Lang, and she has We had a signed photo of Katie Lang in our basement, and you know, he was her client, but I think he only drove her like twice. But you know, he was just this character. He was the funniest guy in the group constantly. He would dance anywhere. He would sing on cue. He was just an animated dude. And yeah, he just brought a lot of joy into my life. So it made sense that you know, the restaurant was going to be called Butchies. He's so ingrained in me, and uh, through my therapist, who's also actually a Reiki, you know, is always like, he's so around you. He's so present in your life. Just a super quick anecdote. It was just kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Like a couple months ago, I had finished with a session and it was in Toronto, and I'm heading home and I was starving. So I'm like, I'm just going to go to this restaurant and this is pre-COVID, have lunch. And so I get into the restaurant and there's nobody in the restaurant. And I say to the guy, can I just sit at the bar? He's like, well, there's nobody staffing the bar. I'm like, it's okay. I just want to sit with my laptop and just do some work. So I'm sitting there on my laptop and I'm doing some work, and my lunch is brought to me, and I put my laptop down and I close it. And I look straight and I'm like, what the hell does that say? My dad was a boater. So we didn't have a cottage, we had a boat. So every weekend they would go up to the boat, every weekend. And there was a photo on the wall, and it was of a boat, and the back of the boat said Butch. And I was like, oh my God.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So believe it or not, but I definitely really think that he's very present still in my life.
I can tell you, as a consumer of your products, again, and being in that restaurant sometimes several times a week, and I'm never meeting your dad, that it definitely, you have created an aura and I guess it's hard to, like, an atmosphere that really reflects what you just said. And I think that's, listen, anyone who's in the Durham region or driving through Durham, or even not, if you're half an hour away, get in the car and drive out to Butchie's, because honest to God, there is very few restaurants that are doing what Andrea does here. And you know, I'm pretty I enjoy my food. That's not going to surprise anybody, but really the level of commitment and work that goes into each and every preparation is astounding. And it's worth the 15-20 minutes that you wait to get that food. And by the way, the staff brings it out to you and ensures that you're constantly getting topped up and that you've got everything that you need. And nobody is nickel and diming you for pickles. If you ask for a pickle, they will give you a pickle, and it won't be an issue. Andrea, thank you so much. I have been looking forward to this for such a long time, and you certainly did not disappoint.
Thank you, my friend.
Everybody tune in to Fire Masters, and I'll be seeing you at the restaurant.
I can't wait.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
Take care.